Allow me at the outset to thank you for this invitation, which permits me to share with you some of the strategies and policies that the new government of Colombia is bringing about to guarantee our country a more prosperous and stable future. In particular, I wish to make use of this opportunity to go in depth over three issues which I consider relevant for the friends of Colombia abroad. These are namely the relations between Colombia and the United States, the economic policy, and the peace process, which seeks to resolve the internal conflict that for so many years has the country endured. It has been a source of personal satisfaction to have found such a positive welcome from behalf of the different government stances of the Clinton administration, as well as from different members of the U.S. Congress and the private sector of the United States. It is undisputable that my meeting with President Clinton before my inauguration and the state visit scheduled for October constitute a symbol of closeness and normalization of the relations between the two nations that share fundamental values and, as you will know, have shared a long history of cooperation and friendship. Without a doubt, the dialogue with the North American authorities and the inter-exchange of ideas that have come about during the last weeks signals the beginning of a new era in the relations between Colombia and the United States, based on mutual respect, leaving behind confrontation in order to work harmoniously on all subjects of the bilateral agenda. We shall renovate our efforts to work jointly on the solution of the problems that the two nations face, but especially to go in depth into the positive common aspects. Our relations will be guided by the strengthening of the principles of democracy, respect and promotion of human rights, and the consolidation of hemispheric integration. Likewise, we will continue to the upfront fight on the war against illicit drugs, which will be achieved through the integrated and shared efforts of both the two countries and the international community. Our economic agenda will also be broadened with the purpose of enhancing our production capability so to ensure the industrial sector a set of clear rules and equal and responsible access to our markets, creating the right conditions for investment in Colombia. I need not to stop and explain to you why the macroeconomic management of the Colombian economy has been for several decades being considered by banking and internationalist experts as a model of responsible handling. Many of the industries, banks, and agencies of certification represented here today in this lunch have recognized the efforts that Colombia has made to meet its international obligations while seeking at the same time to bring about a more prosperous future with better quality of life for Colombians. The behavior of our economy and of the social variables which measure the well-being of the population during the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s demonstrate the long-term commitment with our investors and our people. Colombia, you know it better than I, is a country which aims its sight into the long run, guaranteeing stability for the rules of the game and seriousness for its macroeconomic policy. Some of those present probably had the opportunity to listen to the presentation of our Minister of Finance here in New York a few days ago, where he explained the recent economic measures adopted by my government to once again reset the Colombian economy upon the path of long-term sustainable growth, so to enjoy at maximum our productive capacity. Before my inauguration as President of Colombia, it was clear that the growing imbalance in the public finances made an undelayable, a significant effort to put our house back in order. We do not have the least doubt that the measures launched by my government's economic team, which count with the support of diverse national and international economic analysts, the associations, and the central bank, will receive the approval of our Congress. Control of the budget deficit and the subsequent guarantee of stability and credibility in our currency is a prime objective of my administration. On this matter, we have taken precise measures to adjust the budget by 0.6% of GDP for 1988, reducing the fiscal deficit expected for 1988 to 3.3% of the GDP. A bill was presented for congressional approval where the objective is to reduce the consolidated budget deficit of the public sector in 1999 to 2% GDP, with the aim of reaching a deficit of 1% by the year 2000. The changes proposed include a reform to the aggregate value tax, thus broadening the range of products subject to such contribution, the elimination of some exception of tax-exempt income, a strict control on tax evasion and contraband, and the reorganization of departmental finances. The economic team of my administration, in close coordination with the central bank, is also engaged in reducing the inflation index to 15% for 1999, thus striving to significantly reduce, in the medium term, the local interest rates and creating an incentive for economic. It is clear that such goals are attainable only through the implementation of the fiscal reforms I have described. The macroeconomic program is also consistent with another of our main objectives, reduction of unemployment. We are granting tax incentives to those companies which create additional employment. We are taking the appropriate measures to strengthen sectors which generate employment, such as tourism and construction. In the case of tourism, we have proposed to the Congress the total elimination of the agregable value tax on receptive tourism and to initiate the reactivation of the construction industry. We will inject 80,000 million pesos to subsidize low-income housing projects. We will strengthen the agricultural sector, a large employment-generating field, seeking to enlarge our international competitiveness on key products, such as flowers, sugar, bananas, and coffee, coming closer each time to the financial consumer. In the same manner, we are conscious that the external imbalance on current account, which has reached a deficit 6% of the GDP, are only corrected with a sound fiscal policy. The recent adjustments of the exchange policy reflect the change presented in the commercial flows of Colombia during the last months, which are referred to by academics as fundamental change. Colombia has a level of international reserve enough to attain its needs and has, besides, a structure of payment of its external debt that permits not to depend on short-term, significant external financing sources. The recent behavior of the exchange rate allows us to see with optimism that the different agents of the market consider the proactive measures taken by the government sufficient and well-rooted. Thus, I want to be clear on the following personal and government compromise. Colombia will do the efforts and adjustments necessary to return to the path of continuous growth, so hoped by its people and its commercial partners. My government will continue to be proactive in correcting the imbalances which we currently face so that our market economy may continue to guarantee seriousness and stability in the world of developing countries. This compromise has been well understood by the bank industry and the international certification agencies. We are proud to confirm that our international financial and commercial partners have confidence in our country, its government, and its economic team. We can rest assured, in spite of the difficult worldwide economic conditions, Colombia, once again, will not lie below its compromises and will continue to be the country of opportunities. And Colombia will come ahead because we have the solidness to go about the right path. We are aware of our deficiencies and are correcting them without seeking extreme measures, without isolating our economy, and without drastic control on capital flows. We have a progressively diversified economy, an international trade each time more diverse with a large variety of export products, a foreign investment portfolio each time more diversified, the confidence of investors which know our country well and continue to invest in it, an accumulation of large enough international reserves, and a human capital which guarantee us the overcoming of difficult times. My program of government does not only limit itself to recuperate the stability on the economic spectrum. The mandate which we receive from our voters represent a clear compromise with our democratic system, in such a way that 12.3 million Colombians, one of the highest participation rates ever in the political history of Colombia, renovate their trust in our institutions and on the need for a new internal political dialogue with the different actors in society, including the insurgent groups, so as to reach national reconciliation. I would like to thus refer to the most urgent task of my government, the construction of peace. This task is an irrevocable commitment of my government because it is the highest hope of all Colombians. I am fully conscious of the difficulty that it will be to consolidate the process and eradicate the causes of confrontation, but I shall work incessantly to achieve it. Those are the reasons for which I have personally assumed the leadership of the peace process and the motive behind my meeting with the insurgent leaders in the jungles of Colombia. Yet, this is not a process confined only to the national government and the rebel groups. It too requires the participation of all sectors of the society, of the financing of the agreements reached with contribution from the private sector, of the good offices when needed, from the international community, of an economic system that permits progress and the avails opportunities, and of course, of the goodwill and decision of the different parties involved. Peace has to be founded over a serious strategy of economic development and a bold policy of social justice. Only with such elements it shall be both stable and durable. Beyond doubt, the eradication of the internal conflict will generate immense possibilities of development for our country. On one side, the numerous resources spent on internal security could be diverted to productive social and infrastructure investment projects. The new climate of investment, given our traditional stability, without a doubt will dynamize the interest from both Colombian and foreign businessmen. But above all, Colombia will be making enormous savings in human capital and in human lives, which it has paid during the last decades, in which we are mourned by thousands of Colombian families. In the quest for peace, the participation of the international community will be probably one of the best investments with higher rate of return one can foresee. Additionally, if we reach peace, its achievement will constitute the defeat of one of the greatest evils of the 20th century, namely the problem of the illicit drugs. That shall be our true contribution to free humanity and future generations from this terrible scourge. In light of this, the alternative development of a legal crop substitution mechanism, as well as the eradication of illegal crops, will lie at the forefront of our conversation with insurgent groups. We are hoping to have your comprehension and solidarity, just as we have likewise obtained it from a large part of the international community. Members of the Colombian American Association, dear assistants, it is difficult for me to hide my optimism over our vision of the Colombians for the 21st century, a dignified country with peace and democracy that generates opportunities of development for all its inhabitants and business opportunity for those investors which have trust in our future. We will continue throughout with our diplomacy for peace, transmitting the international community the amicable face of Colombia, personified in the legendary Juan Valdez, recognizing our difficulties but secure of our future. As a statesman, the challenges are immense, but also the opportunities, and we know that you will accompany us both in the phases of changes as well in that of the opportunities. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cards on the tables. So therefore, we're going to have to field the questions by hand. Questions? Well, Mr. President, I have the first question for you. As you well know, when Wall Street looks at Colombia, we look at Ecopetrol, we look at the cafeteros. Are any plans in the years ahead for the modernization of Ecopetrol, additional privatizations, or any comments on changes within this enormous sector in Colombia, the oil sector and Ecopetrol?
That's the best question is for my Minister of Mines and Energy and for me. I will also give him the word, but I think that really we're working very hard on the oil business. I think that we need to be more competitive. We need to invest a lot of resources in trying to find out new oil fields. We are autosufficient in oil until year 2005. I think we need to find near 2.5 billion barrels to the year 2005. So we are promoting in Colombia, and that's the will of the government, to bring new investment, exploration, offshore exploration also. And that's something that really we are working with the new Minister of Mines. So I would even like to give him a work and take advantage that he's here so that he could explain very briefly which are the proposals and for his sector, that is energy and oil. Sí, Carlos.
I can give a very precise answer because I think the question was, is Ecopetrol going to be privatized? No. It's quite a simple answer. And something that has to be remembered is that the oil reserves are owned by the nation, not by Ecopetrol. Ecopetrol is just a state company, it's an oil company, and in terms of the oil sector, it is not relevant if Ecopetrol is private or public. But I want to make clear, Ecopetrol is not going to be privatized. We need to attract foreign investment, and what we are planning to do is to make contracts more flexible. We want to make the association contracts more flexible. We're changing all contracts into new contracts. This is widely known by many of the assistants here, and this is what is necessary. The other question that I had before was about changes in terms of taxes related to the oil sector. I think no changes are necessary in terms of taxes. Again, the main point is flexibility related to existing and new contracts. This is the main issue about oil policy, and as the President said, we need to make a very significant effort because Colombia has to increase reserves by 500 million barrels per year during the next 5 years. Otherwise, we will become an importer by the year 2002. So those are the main points in terms of oil policy.
Ahora tenemos una pregunta en español. ¿Cuál es su plan para lograr la paz en Colombia? ¿Cuánto tiempo tomará y cuál será el nuevo rol de la guerrilla? I'll translate it, perhaps. What is your plan to achieve peace in Colombia, and how much time will it take, and what will be the new role of the guerrillas?
Thank you. Answer in English? Yes, I'll go ahead and answer in English. Okay, we were talking at our table about, I think that for the first time, as I said also in my speech, there's a new light at the end of the tunnel in the peace process in Colombia. During my campaign, I proposed to meet directly and personally with the guerrilla leaders, We had a meeting in the middle of the jungles of Colombia, the 9th of July, and they basically have 10 points to discuss with the new government. Some of them are political reforms inside Colombia, but I think there are 2 or 3 points mentioned in these 10 points that I want to point out because I think those are definitely for the peace process. Number 1, that the last point, the 10th point of the guerrilla proposal is the eradication of the illicit crops in our country. For the first time, they have signed out that they are willing to eradicate the illicit crops in Colombia. Someone asked me, and why you never thought about it and you didn't work on that? I said, because it's the first time that really they put in black and white in a paper saying that they're willing to eradicate these illicit crops. All of you know that the influence of the guerrilla in these areas is very high. If you see the map of Colombia where you have cultivation of cocaine or illicit crops as poppy fields, those are located in areas where the guerrilla have the influence. So I think that for the first time, if we find out resources to eradicate these illicit crops, I think that by the end of 5 or 10 years, we'll definitely eradicate all the crops, illicit crops in our country. So that's why I've said that if we achieve peace in Colombia, it's the first battle that we are going to win over the drug lords. So that's why I'm proposing a type of Marshall Plan for these areas. And that's why we're promoting this plan through what we have been calling the diplomacy of peace, and also asking the cooperation of different countries in this purpose. So this is a special fund to invest in these areas, different than that of the budget, the national budget. So we are working, first of all, with the IDB. Now we have a loan of near $100 million for this purpose. Yesterday, talking to the United Nations Funds Against Drugs, they gave us $1 billion for the next 10 years to work in the alternative development of these areas. We've been working with countries in the European Union, and they're willing to support also this special project. And last, in the reform we just proposed to the Congress of Colombia, we create a special bonus, obligatory bonuses for the largest 5,000 taxpayers, and we hope to get something near between $600 to $800 million a year for the next 2 years to be invested also in these areas. This is a fund and a program that is going to be managed by the government and at the same time by the private sector. We want the private sector to be involved in this project, in this program, like a type of board of director that will decide where are we going to invest, which projects are we going to support, and which projects are we going to put in practice. Also, we are asking very fast assistance of the FAO and assistance of the UNDP here in the United Nations to try to identify crops in which Colombia is competitive, crops in which we should invest, what type of agro-industry we should develop in these areas. But basically, the idea is to invest in alternative development, not only looking for the eradication and fumigation of the illicit crops, but for the first time, I think there's a new approach to try to finish and end with this problem. And there's the commitment of the guerrilla. Twice they've said that they're really committed, and we are designing in the next 1 or 2 months as pilot programs so that we could work with them in these areas and definitely start showing the world that there's a decision to eradicate these illicit crops. And I think that for the first time, we're going to win this battle on drugs that not only will benefit Colombia, we will benefit our peasants, but at the same time, I think will benefit countries as the US that demand for these drugs. Very quickly, we hope to start conversation with the FARC group. It's the largest guerrilla group in the country. We hope to start conversation in the next 50 days. The ELN has been working in the National Convention with the social or the civil society. Now we have a direct contact also with the ELN. So we hope that in the next months we will have good news. First, the first meeting with the FARC. It's going to be a meeting in which we will designate our speakers. The guerrilla leaders will designate their speakers. And at the same time, I think that we will start our table of negotiations in the next 90 days. So I think that's something that is very important for us, and there's the will. We had a meeting last week again between the High Commissioner for Peace of Colombia and the leaders of the insurgent groups, and their proposal is to look forward very quickly to start all this process. So I think that peace, as I said in my speech, is the most important issue in the country, and we hope really to achieve it at the end of our government.
Thank you, Mr. President. We actually are out of time, and we have no more time for questions. At this time, we'd like to present you, Mr. President, with this certificate from the association. On behalf of the directors, officers, and members, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we hope that you honor us again
We'll
year after year, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.